The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter, narrated by Ken Coons. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother underneath the root of a very big fir tree in a sandbank. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went to the baker's. She bought a loaf of bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail were good little bunnies. They went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuce, and then some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the corner of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? He jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was terribly frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. He ran on 4 legs and went faster, but he ran into a net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. Peter got lost and shed big tears. His sobs were heard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him and asked him to get up. Mr. McGregor got a sieve to catch Peter, but he escaped. Peter lost his jacket in the garden. He jumped into a can. It had a lot of water in it. Mr. McGregor looked in all the flower pots. Peter sneezed, "Gertie, chew!" Mr. McGregor chased him. Peter jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. Mr. McGregor was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He did not know which way to go. Also, he was very wet. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity, lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. Peter asked an old mouse the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden. He came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed. Suddenly he heard a noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scratch, scritch. He climbed up on a wheelbarrow and peeped over. He saw Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. He started running as fast as he could go. Mr. McGregor saw him at the corner, but Peter did not care. Peter slipped underneath the gate. He was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter ran home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he lay down upon the nice soft sand and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. Peter was sick during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, 1 tablespoon to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. Goodbye.